This podcast is brought to you by PSSA, the Political Science Student Association here at the University of Guam. Hopefully, everyone, welcome to our podcast. Today, we are going to be analyzing The Godfather and how it relates to economics. I am your host, Melody Cruz, and I have two other co hosts with me today.
Hi, I'm your other host, Aryanna Sanele.
And I'm your last host, Maria Isabel Santos.
The first question that we will be analyzing today is what principles of economics were covered in the film? For the first principle that we saw in The Godfather was opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is mainly the cost of something is what you give up to get it. In The Godfather, Michael Corleone gave up his life to take over the family business. He was living abroad with his girlfriend outside of the family business far away, and his girlfriend had no idea what their family was involved with. When his father did get shot, he was forced, not forced by his family, but he felt the obligation to leave what he was doing at the time to go and take over what his father was going over. Another thing is he chose the loyalty towards his family with the cost of his personal freedom or morality and his life with Kay, his girlfriend. You can see throughout the film that it actually changed his perspective on how he saw the world. He turned to more violent outcomes instead of how he was before, being more militaristic type of mindset that he was in.
Okay, the second economic principle that I personally saw in the movie is scarcity. Scarcity means there's never enough of something to satisfy everyone, whether that be money, time, power, or safety. In The Godfather, power and protection are scarce. The Corleone family doesn't have unlimited control, so every decision they make involves a trade-off. That means choosing one thing and giving up another. A great example of this is when Vito Corleone is approached with a business deal to get involved in the drug trade. Financially, it's a huge opportunity, but he refuses. Why? Because he knows the cost of entering the drug business would be too high. He'd lose his political allies and respect, which are essential in keeping the family safe and in power. That's also where opportunity cost comes in. Opportunity cost is, as what my previous co host said, by saying no to the drug business, Vito gives up a lot of profit, but he keeps his political influence and family values intact. He even says, "It makes no difference to me what a man does for a living, but drugs, that's a dirty business." That line shows he's not just thinking emotionally, he's making a strategic choice based on long-term consequences. Long-term cost would be his reputation, short-term gain would be money from the drug business, basically. And that's it for me.
Okay. So we're gonna move on to Principle 7, and Principle 7 relates to the government and how it impacts the entirety of econ. So just for the record, and to set the historical timeline of this film, right? The novel came out, the original novel, The Godfather, came out in 1969. And this is post World War II America. So obviously, I can't say a bad word, but economic status in America was the S word, but it was really this is more like a recovery kind of period for America. And so when the film in 1972 came out, there was some controversy for the record. And it is pretty deep. This is for in terms of the whole storyline of it all. But in relation to econ, we dove into the roles of cartels, right? So with cartels, they do have a parallel to the government. So we know that the government provides services to their citizens, right? In terms of the cartels, they do have a parallel role in terms of servicing to clients. So they do establish more of a patron and client relationship throughout the film in exchange for loyalty. And that's how government also works in general, where if they provide certain services for the citizens, like let's say defense what else would you guys
Protection.
say? Yeah, protection. Yeah. The government provides those kinds of things, and obviously citizens will remain loyal to that. In terms of like clients, if they remain or if these cartels stick to their services, then their clients would obviously have some kind of loyalty exchange between them. So yeah,
Mm,
that's my input on that
nice.
one. Yeah. Okay.
So, we're moving on now to question number two, which is how do scarcity, trade-offs, and opportunity cost affect characters' decisions? Um, First, we mainly analyze Michael Corleone. He was one of the big main characters in the film. For opportunity cost, as we said, at first he left the life that he was living as a regular civilian, abroad with his girlfriend to take over the family business, which was a lot and did change a lot of his mentality. And the major trade off in that decision was that he decided to avenge his father and kill Salazzo and McCluskey. In the time of after his father recovered from his shooting, he did have a conversation with him out in the patio, and what had happened was his father warned him that someone along their family ties was going to betray their family business. And he told them along the lines that if they tried to meet in a place in the middle between the two families, then whoever told you those directions, that is the person who is going against you. So he had to go against what their family believes in, which is not to kill. In the beginning of the film, Don Corleone was there was a man who was brought to Don Corleone trying to avenge his daughter's rapist. And Don Corleone denied him from killing them because that's just not the kind of things that they do within their family business.
Right.
And with that, Michael decided to change that because of the people who were going against the family. And he decided to change change the path that they were going on, and now they were putting blood on the family's hands. So in that's a major trade-off decision that he had to make, mainly because that was his father that he was hoping to avenge his life. And yeah.
So we already know the definition of scarcity, right?
Right.
So as an immigrant in America, Don Vito Corleone faces barriers to formal power and respectability. Italian Americans during that era were often excluded from mainstream economic and political institutions. So Vito built his own form of power through loyalty, favors, and fear outside the legal system. You could say in The Godfather, what's scarce wasn't just money or weapons, it's legitimate power, which because he couldn't find it from the government, he built it outside the government, building like a sort of shadow government behind the legal government, who was also,
Yeah.
by the way, corrupt as well.
Yes.
That's one way to
Because at
say,
Yeah.
that,
yeah.
oh yeah, can I just add on to that as well?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that when Salazzo, I no, it wasn't Salazzo. It was I forgot what the man's name was that came to ask um for his political powers, because Don Corleone has some like senators and people within the
His
government
client.
that,
Yeah, right.
yeah, his that do have a patron client relationship with him as well. He asked about the drug business to Don Corleone. He asked for his political leaders to be behind his back on that drug business.
Right.
Um, and then you can also see the corruption going on within the government at the time, and how like those political leaders, like that type of trust, that scarcity on trust between the political leaders and Don Corleone is taking an effect, because through that time, Don Corleone didn't want the drug business to also be involved with them,
Mhm.
because it would also lose that trust between the political leaders and the Corleone family.
Right.
Mm.
So yeah, I just wanted to add on a little bit on that as well.
Yeah, you could say he built that parallel government sort of within his community because the justice system failed their community, so they don't go to court. They go to Don Corleone instead.
Mm.
That's what he
Yes.
provides.
Well,
That falls
yes.
deep. That falls really deep. It's
It
just like,
really does.
dude. I guess
Yeah.
in a way, that shows like how corruption in the government could also affect econ entirely, per se.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really can, especially like when you think about it though, we did learn a lot about GDP as well within our econ class.
Right.
Mm.
And but what is not counted in the GDP is what happens between cartels and what happens within that. Just come to think of it, if it was counted in the GDP, the numbers would be so much higher than they are at the moment.
The GDP
They would.
rates to
Yes,
the
the yeah, because like thinking about like at the time within the Corleone family and within the Godfather, at that specific year, there was a lot that went on, and a lot of money that was spent within the cartel.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, because these people, these clients, they pay them for like the business that they do. So it's just a lot of money being spent within the cartel that is not counted within the actual real GDP. So I just wanted to bring that up too.
And then following that, like right after World War II, it wouldn't help like that America was in recovery stage. And if they did account for cartel rates, then that would mess up the entire like I feel like whatever their entire recovery process in a way.
Yes, it will. It will
Yeah.
make it look like America has a lot of money, but really the money is not coming from legal forms. It's coming from
Right.
Mm.
illegal.
Yeah.
And and I feel like that's really why it's not counted, because it will kind of make it look like we have a lot of money, but really it's not. We don't. It's not like legal government spending or legal consumer spending. It's
Right.
all illegal forms of spending there.
True. It would also kind of look bad on the government saying, "Oh, you can't even control your own what's the word, criminals or something," and yet
Your mafia,
You're
you
all running
can't.
yeah,
around. Yeah.
yeah,
And
you're letting them run around, run roughshod
then
over the legal system.
it'll just be publicly shown that there is actually criminal behavior going on and corruption within the government.
Yeah, which no one wants. Well, at least them.
Oh yeah.
I feel like if that would affect right now, let's say The Godfather, right? For instance, let's say it happened at this time during when like our economic status is really bad. How would that like play into it?
Hmm.
Or let's bring it down to like Guam, right? We live in Guam. Drugs are
Mm.
common, right? Imagine
Yeah.
how that would affect our kind of GDP and like whatnot. If those illegal actions accounted for the GDP rate here on Guam.
I feel like it would be very high. There are a lot of drug users and sellers here on our island. And what sucks is that if that was counted, our GDP would be high, our rate would
Right.
be high.
Mm.
But as you see and you look around, poverty is really a big thing on the island.
Right.
It
Um,
is.
and it's you wouldn't expect that high of a number to be on the island
Right.
Yeah.
because we're counting what's also going on within the drug business here.
Wow.
So yeah.
You guys have any
Okay.
other points? I do have other points though. We briefly covered this in class, and it was the game theory. So
Yeah.
Mm.
yeah. So basically Michael's like position is I guess in within the game theory is valid, right? Because it is influenced by what is happening. So
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
obviously, right, the shooting of his father, right, for instance, that influence, yeah, that kind of influence what will happen in a way where it's predictable. You know what I mean? Like moves like that
Yeah.
will be very predictable in terms of like econ.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see 100%.
And that way, like I feel like in terms of like businesses, you make enemies and you make partnerships, right? And
Mm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
like And it's like, oh, it's like dragging each other by the hair, really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good way to put it.
right.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. I hope you enjoyed the experience and our analysis on The Godfather and how it relates to econ. Once again, I just want to say that this podcast is brought to you by PSSA, the Political Science Student Association. If you have any information, you can follow us on Instagram at pssa.uog.
Just on period.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, bye
Thank you
guys.
for listening.
Thank you for
Thank you.
listening.